Have you ever wondered what you would do if you were alone in unfamiliar territory, surrounded by danger at every turn, and had to protect people you've never met before? Imagine the blazing sun beating down on your head, the wind carrying dust, and the silence broken only by the distant sound of horse hooves and the rustle of clothes in the wind. It is in this arid, hostile, and unpredictable setting that the story you are about to discover unfolds. A story that blends courage, unexpected decisions, and encounters that change destinies. Stay with me until the end, because what you discover now may surprise you and make you see the cowboys of the Old West in a completely different way. In the Old West, cowboys weren't just solitary men with hats and guns. They were often complex figures, driven by their own code of honor, compassion, and courage. They faced more than just outlaws or hostile Indians. They faced moral dilemmas, choices that could save lives or condemn them, and consequences that extended far beyond the end of each journey. And it is precisely in this context that we meet Jake Thompson, a cowboy who, that afternoon, made a decision that would change not only his destiny, but also the destiny of everyone around him. Jake wasn't your average hero, the kind you see in books and movies, always looking for the spotlight. He was a man of few words, with eyes that had seen more than their fair share and hands calloused from hard work. But there was something about him that caught your attention, a sense of responsibility that transcended self-interest, a quiet courage that only reveals itself when the situation demands it. What you'll discover now is exactly how this courage manifests itself in unexpected ways, and how a single decision can alter the course of many people's lives. The caravan Jake was tasked with protecting wasn't just a group of travelers. It was families, pioneers, and orphans who were heading into the unknown in search of a better future. They were entrusting their lives to a man who, until then, was a complete stranger. And here lies the question: could you remain calm and courageous when the safety of so many depended solely on you? Or, under pressure, would uncertainty and fear take over? What Jake did that day shows that true courage goes far beyond physical strength. It's about choices, sacrifices, and above all, responsibility. As the caravan progressed along narrow, inhospitable trails, Jake felt the weight of every decision. One wrong step could mean the end of everything, and yet he pressed on, guided by something greater than himself. The sun approached the horizon, tinting the sky orange and red, and every shadow along the way seemed to hide a new danger. It's in this setting that you begin to realize that cowboys of the Old West didn't just fight bandits or wild animals, but also the unexpected, situations that tested not only their skill with weapons or horses, but also their humanity, compassion, and intelligence. And it's precisely this mix of tension, emotion, and choices that makes Jake's story so unique. Every moment on that arid afternoon was charged with meaning, and every decision made had the power to save or destroy lives. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes you'll learn every detail of this journey, every challenge faced, and every moment of courage that showcases the true spirit of the Old West. And even when everything seemed under control, an unexpected twist would completely change the course of the story, making it clear that sometimes encounters that seem small can change entire destinies. As the caravan slowly advanced across the rugged terrain, Jake's every step seemed measured, every decision made with the care of someone who carries not only his own fate, but the fate of many on his shoulders. He looked at the families who trusted him, at the eyes of the children who, unbeknownst to him, were learning about courage and a sacrifice. And it's at that moment that you begin to realize something important. Stories like this aren't just about adventures or duels in the Old West. They're about choices that shape us, about moments when humanity and compassion become more valuable than any weapon or skill. And that's why I want to hear from you. As you follow Jake's journey, think, have you ever found yourself in a situation where you needed to protect or help someone, even when it was difficult or risky? Or perhaps you've experienced a moment when a decision you made changed the course of something bigger. Share your experience, your opinion, or even the feelings this story evokes in you in the comments. Your participation here isn't just a form of interaction, it's what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this type of content. Every comment helps build a community of people who value courage, compassion, and inspiring stories. And if this narrative is moving you, if you feel the intensity of Jake's every step and want to continue immersing yourself in this Wild West universe, a simple way to support it is by liking this video. This isn't just a symbolic gesture. It's a way to show that stories of courage and encounters that change destinies have value, and that you believe in the importance of sharing these experiences. Each like helps the channel continue producing videos like this, keeping alive stories that might otherwise be lost to time. And of course, if you want to continue following exciting stories filled with life-changing decisions and unexpected encounters, subscribing to the channel is the way to ensure you don't miss a single episode of these adventures. Here, we value those who actively participate, who connect with the stories, and who believe that narratives about courage, humanity, and sacrifice have the power to inspire. When you subscribe, you're not just saving a video to watch later. You're joining a community that cares, learns together, and shares experiences that move and transform. So as Jake continues guiding the caravan through this uncertain territory, think about this: your participation, your comment, your like, your subscription. All of this helps keep alive the story of people who, even in difficult times, show that remarkable choices and acts of courage can change destinies. And speaking of destinies, Jake's journey is far from over. Sunset approaches, danger lurks in the shadows, and the next challenge could appear at any moment, testing not only his skill but his humanity. He wasn't a man of grand words, but rather of grand deeds. His name? Jake Thompson, a seasoned cowboy, but with a past he preferred to keep hidden in the silence of lonely nights. The scars on his face and hands told stories he rarely shared, memories of difficult decisions, of paths he chose and others he had to abandon. No one truly knew the man behind the worn hat and dust-stained jacket. To many, Jake was just another guardian of the West, but those who crossed his path quickly sensed something different about him. A rare blend of courage, observation, and an uncanny sensitivity, as if he had learned to read not only the terrain, but also people's intentions. It all began when Jake received a seemingly simple proposal to protect a caravan of pioneers on their journey through the West. It was a mission that at first glance seemed routine. But, as happens in remarkable stories, what seemed simple soon became something much greater. He accepted not for glory or money, but because he knew deep down that such a decision shaped the very essence of a man. Every step through the desert, every gesture of protection, every watchful glance at the horizon carried with it the responsibility of impacting lives. The caravan, made up of families, orphans, and a few courageous traders, placed in him a silent, almost tangible trust that weighed more than any revolver or riding skill. As the group progressed, Jake began to notice nuances that many would overlook. Small signs of danger, subtle changes in people's behavior, the lay of the land, all were part of a hidden truth that only a man experienced in the West could interpret. Every decision he made had a ripple effect, an impact that extended beyond the immediate moment. It was as if each choice carried with it a silent transformation, shaping each pioneer's mindset and leaving a lasting mark on their own journey. What seemed merely a physical journey revealed itself to be an internal journey, a constant test of patience, perception, and courage. But Jake wasn't immune to the weight of it. At night, when campfires illuminated the weary faces of travelers and the stars shone like silent witnesses to the desert, he could feel his own heartbeat in tune with everyone's fear, hope, and determination. He thought about the decisions he'd made, the consequences that might arise, and pondered the mindset required to lead, protect, and above all, act humanely. In a world that often seemed indifferent to life, it was a delicate balance between instinct, reason, and what he called his personal code, a silent but firm moral compass that guided every choice, every move, and every sacrifice. During the journey, Jake began to realize that the West wasn't just a physical place, but a land of revelations. Each person in the caravan carried dreams, fears, and stories he never imagined hearing. A young orphan walking silently, a mother worried about her, children, an exhausted merchant trying to hold on to hope. They were all somehow connected to his mission, and his every move could change someone's destiny. And even with all his accumulated experience, Jake knew there were no scripts, that life in the West didn't follow predictions, and that the right decisions weren't always the easiest or safest. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because it's at this point that Jake's story begins to reveal layers few see: responsibility, quiet, courage, and the unexpected impact of choices that at first glance seem simple. He doesn't just protect the caravan, he becomes a moral and emotional reference point for those with no other compass. Each step forward is a test of his own humanity and a reflection on how unexpected encounters can transform destinies, reveal hidden truths, and trigger profound changes in the lives of everyone around him. It's in this delicate balance between risk, protection, and compassion that Jake's journey becomes more than a mission. It becomes a mirror of our own decisions and the quiet strength we all carry when called to action. It wasn't long before Jake realized the caravan's path was being watched by power-hungry bandits. He noticed the subtle signs first: fresh footprints in the sand, horses neighing in the distance, and the sudden silence of birds flying overhead. Every detail that would go unnoticed by most was like a warning to him, a silent invitation to prepare. In the West, where the high law was often just a vague and distant idea, knowing how to read these clues was as essential as any revolver or shooting skill. Jake knew that to protect those who depended on him, brute force wouldn't be enough. He would need to calculate moves, anticipate decisions, and above all remain calm even when danger seemed about to explode before his eyes. The warm wind carried the scent of dry earth and gunpowder, mingling with the tension that grew with every step. He watched the caravan, carefully, noticing the restlessness of each pioneer, the anxiety of the children, and the silent concern of the parents. Every glance was a reminder that his responsibility was not just physical, but emotional, an invisible pressure that weighed more heavily than any backpack or load of supplies. Jake took a deep breath, letting experience and intuition guide his next decision. He began to organize the caravan strategically, distributing the travelers and their belongings, so that if the bandits attacked, everyone would have a chance to escape. His every choice had an immediate impact and, at the same time, reverberated through the emotional journey of each person he protected, shaping their confidence and courage. What Jake didn't know was that the bandits weren't the only ones who would hinder his mission. The desert, with its cruel beauty, held its own secrets and traps, and every curve in the sand could hide surprises that would turn a simple crossing into a true test of endurance. Sandstorms would arise without warning, obscuring vision and making the journey nearly impossible. Wild animals would cross the caravan's path, demanding quick and precise decisions. And, as if that weren't enough, internal conflicts began to arise among the travelers themselves, testing Jake's patience and leadership. He needed to maintain balance, act firmly, but also with empathy, because a leader's true strength, he knew, is measured not only in battles won, but in lives saved and trust earned. Meanwhile, the bandits approached, silent as shadows, watching every movement, every step of Jake and the caravan. They believed that fear could be more powerful than courage, that an imminent threat could break men and women through intimidation. But Jake had something they hadn't anticipated, a mindset shaped by difficult decisions and a deep understanding of human nature. He understood that protection wasn't just reaction, but anticipation. It wasn't just strength, but strategy and perception. Every moment became a test of intelligence and resilience, where every choice could completely change the course of the journey. The impact of his actions extended beyond the present. Every movement, every silent warning, every word of unspoken guidance he gave the caravan carried with it a subtle transformation, shaping not only the outcome of the journey, but the very way the pioneers viewed courage and sacrifice. It was fascinating to observe how the courage of a single man could radiate and influence an entire community, creating an invisible connection between leaders and followers, between experience and hope, between action and consequence. The West, with all its harshness, revealed more than danger. It revealed character, hidden truth, and the possibilities for transformation that arise when one chooses to act with integrity and determination. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because this is where the story begins to reveal Jake's true decisions. It's not just about facing visible enemies or dodging sandstorms. It's about understanding the impact of each choice, the weight of each trusting look, the silent effect that a gesture of courage or compassion can have on an entire journey. Each challenge revealed not only the behind the scenes of his experience as a cowboy, but also a mindset shaped by past experiences, sacrifices, and an almost intuitive ability to anticipate and react to situations that could change destinies. The first days of the journey were marked by a silent tension, the kind you feel in the air before a sandstorm. Jake could feel the weight of each member of the caravan's gaze on him, heavy with distrust. It wasn't just fear of bandits or the natural dangers of the desert they had to face, but the constant doubt about their own intentions. How could a solitary man, accustomed to trusting only his own shadow, truly protect so many lives? Every step he took, every decision he made, seemed to be watched with a mixture of hope and suspicion. Some pioneers whispered among themselves, wondering if this cowboy was more of a threat than a salvation. Others simply remained silent, measuring Jake's every gesture with wary eyes. This distrust was an invisible force, more difficult to confront than any armed confrontation. Jake felt he needed to prove at every turn that his presence wasn't a risk, but a protection. He remembered the stories he'd heard about cowboys and their solitary journeys, about decisions that changed destinies, and about quiet courage that never sought applause. Jake's mindset was clear. Protecting wasn't just reacting to danger, but anticipating and making decisions that kept the wagon train safe, even when no one fully believed him. Each night spent under the starry western sky was a reflection on impact and responsibility. He thought of the lives that could be transformed not by fairy tale heroes, but by firm choices and the compassion of those who understand the value of each person under their protection. The caravan's internal conflicts intensified daily. Small disagreements over routes, rest stops, or even the distribution of supplies escalated into tense debates. Jake quickly learned that protecting didn't just mean facing down bandits or surviving sandstorms. It also meant managing emotions, allaying fears, and building an invisible bridge of trust, however fragile. He knew that every pioneer's transformation began with insight and patience, that true courage wasn't shouting the loudest, but acting consistently and fairly, even when no one was looking. At the same time, he remained alert for subtle signs of external threat. Unusual footprints in the sand, shadows that seemed to move beyond the horizon, and the silent instinct of one who knows the desert's inner workings. All these were part of his constant vigilance. Every decision, every small adjustment in the caravan's position had a direct impact not only on physical safety, but also on the collective mindset of those who now depended on his leadership. It was a delicate dance between authority and empathy, between action and observation, between strength and understanding. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because it's here that the complexity of Jake's role reveals itself. It's not just about surviving attacks or natural disasters. It's about understanding the hidden truth behind human actions, realizing that each choice can trigger a chain reaction that transforms destinies, shapes trust, and challenges the very essence of courage. The caravan's journey becomes a reflection of the cowboy's silent decisions, and each tense moment reveals something about leadership, character, and the invisible impact of a man who refuses to give up, even in the face of external doubts. Dusk slowly fell over the desert, tinting the sky with orange and purple hues, and with it came the feeling that time was running out for the caravan. Jake Thompson knew that as the sun approached the horizon, every choice became more critical. It wasn't just the bandits who prowled silently, waiting for the opportunity to attack. The path itself seemed to conspire against them. Loose sand, treacherous cliffs, and the lack of water turned what seemed like a simple crossing into a true test of endurance and strategy. Every step had to be calculated. Every decision carried with it the weight of responsibility, not only for the life of each pioneer, but for the fate of the caravan itself, which depended on their experience and courage. As he advanced, Jake felt the profound impact of every choice he made. Where to camp? When to stop to rest the animals? Which route to take to avoid areas known for ambushes or natural traps? Each decision was a piece on an invisible board, where the slightest distraction could cost him dearly. He realized the journey was more than physical. It was a test of mentality, of the ability to remain calm under pressure, and of understanding that true leadership is shown not only in action, but in anticipating the consequences. At night, sitting by the campfire, Jake watched the weary but confident faces of those who now depended on his presence. The silence of the desert seemed to amplify the weight of his thoughts, revealing the hidden truth about how fragile the line between safety and disaster really is. The physical toll was evident, but the psychological toll was even heavier. Jake felt every decision as a personal responsibility, every step across the treacherous terrain as if he were carrying the entire history of the caravan on his shoulders. He understood that courage wasn't just about facing armed bandits, but also about shouldering the silent burden of choices no one else wanted to make. Each night, under the vast starry sky, became a meditation on impact and consequences, on how life and death could be separated by details many would never notice. The journey demanded constant attention, keen perception, and above all, an iron determination to keep going, even when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm body and mind. Jake was also beginning to realize that reacting to external dangers wasn't enough. He needed to deal with the inner workings of the caravan itself, with the fears, doubts, and even the silent resentment of some pioneers who still hesitated to trust him. Every small gesture he made had to convey confidence and security, even when his own heart was filled with uncertainty about what fate had in store for them on this crossing. It was a constant dance between courage and patience, strength and empathy, where the impact of his actions manifested itself subtly but decisively in the survival and well-being of all. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because it is at this point that the true complexity of Jake's journey reveals itself. The West was not just a place of confrontation, it was a space of silent revelations, of internal and external transformations where each decision could generate lasting changes, not only in the lives of those who accompanied him, but in his own perception of himself. The caravan, despite all their initial distrust, began to understand that the weight of Jake's responsibility was not a burden, but a demonstration of commitment and compassion, and that courage often hid in the invisible details, in the ability to act with clarity, even in the face of exhaustion and imminent danger. Night was gathering over the plain, and with it came an almost palpable silence, broken only by the distant sound of the wind dragging the sand. Jake Thompson felt the weight of every second, knowing that the caravan, still so vulnerable, depended on the precision of his movements and the clarity of his mind. Then, without warning, the first signs of danger appeared, silhouettes moving through the bushes, watchful eyes, and blades hidden in the shadows. The ambush was about to happen, and for an instant, Jake's heart beat faster, not from fear, but from the realization that these lives were in his hands. He didn't hesitate. Courage, in that moment, wasn't empty bravery or theatrical heroism, but a strategic decision that required both courage and sacrifice. With calculated movements, he positioned himself to attract the bandits' attention, creating an opening for the caravan to proceed to safety. Each step he took seemed to resonate on the dry desert floor, as if the universe itself recognized the intensity of what was happening there. Jake knew that if he failed, the consequences would be immediate and devastating. But the heroic act he performed in that moment was much more than facing armed enemies. It was the embodiment of responsibility, of real impact on the fate of those who trusted him. As the dust rose around him and the first shots rang out, Jake experienced a complex mix of adrenaline and vulnerability. He felt the weight of his own limitations, but also a quiet strength that came from within, a determination that only arises when life and death intertwine so intensely that there's no room for doubt. Every step, every gesture, every breath became part of a meticulous dance between risk and protection. Jake's courage wasn't just about fighting, it was about making himself fully available, about embracing the responsibility to protect, even when it seemed the odds were against him. As the caravan gained distance, guided by his silent, steady presence, Jake began to understand that true heroism often hides behind visible actions. It's not just the victory over the bandits that matters, but the quiet transformation that occurs in those who witness a sacrifice that transcends the act itself. The pioneers, even without realizing it at the time, were witnessing a profound lesson in courage, trust, and the importance of decisions that carry real consequences. His every gesture was imbued with humanity, demonstrating that leadership isn't measured solely by strength or skill with weapons, but by a commitment to the safety and well-being of others, even under extreme pressure. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because it is precisely at this point that the narrative of courage intertwines with the complexity of the human journey. Jake's bravery reveals something that goes beyond the West or ambushes. It is the hidden truth about how the impact of an action extends far beyond the moment, shaping mindsets, strengthening bonds, and awakening a sense of purpose in those who follow that story. Each decision made there, each silent sacrifice, began to leave an indelible mark not only on the caravan's trajectory, but on each pioneer's own perception of trust, resilience, and humanity. Amidst danger and tension, courage transformed into revelation, and revelation in turn transformed the meaning of the entire journey, reminding us that, in any crossing, the moments of greatest risk are also those that carry the most lasting lessons and the most profound learnings. The silence that followed the dust storm and gunfire was almost deafening. The caravan, finally safe, advanced slowly through the valley, their faces illuminated by the golden light of dawn. But there was an invisible tension in the air. Jake Thompson, who normally remained impenetrable, felt the weight of fatigue and, more than that, a strange sense of emptiness. He had accomplished what many would call an impossible mission. He faced enemies, made decisions no other man would have dared to make, and ensured that those lives reached their destination. But curiously, the triumph brought no joy. A silent, almost disconcerting feeling began to creep into his chest, reminding him that not all victories are complete, and not all courage results in immediate satisfaction. As he walked alongside the caravan, observing each face marked by fear, exhaustion, and yet silent gratitude, Jake realized that the true impact of his actions had not yet fully unfolded. Each pioneer carried their own narrative of fear, hope, and survival, and now Jake's mind began to wander through the behind the scenes of every decision he had made. He recalled every moment of the ambush, every silent calculation to protect the group, every choice that placed him in the face of danger. Courage, he understood, is not a permanent state, but a momentary reflex of those willing to put the collective good above themselves. Yet the sadness he felt wasn't just the weight of responsibility, it was something deeper, connected to the realization of what had been sacrificed so that others could carry on. Jake was beginning to realize that, however much victory had been achieved, there was an invisible price now hanging over him. The impact of his actions, though vital, left scars no one else could see, and it was precisely this hidden truth that left him unsettled. He remembered every decision that had taken him away from his own safety, every moment he had chosen the good of the caravan over his own peace of mind, and he understood that the true test lay not in the battle itself, but in what lay after it. As the group approached the first buildings of their destination, Jake took a few steps back, scanning the horizon with tired but alert eyes. Every stone, every tree, every trail seemed to carry the memory of everything that had happened. It was at that moment, at that silent turning point, that he began to understand that the journey didn't end with the arrival. In fact, it simply took on another dimension. Courage and heroism are measured not by the visible act, but by the effect it has on the lives of those protected and on the transformation of those who acted. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because it is precisely at this threshold between achievement and reflection that the most powerful lessons emerge. Jake begins to realize that the sadness he felt was actually an invitation to understand the true meaning of his choices, the strength of resilience, and the value of empathy, even when no one seems to recognize or appreciate it. Each decision made during that journey revealed not only his strategic mindset, but also the complexity of the emotional impact that an act of courage can generate. He realized that in life the most risky moments don't always produce immediate joy, but rather leave a profound mark, shaping who we are and who we become. True transformation, he understood, happens behind the scenes, in the silent choices that define character and how we deal with the consequences of what we decide to face. Jake stood still for a few minutes, watching the horizon ahead. The caravan continued its journey toward safety, but he felt each step deepen the silence surrounding him. There was a strange serenity in the air, but also an invisible weight he carried. He knew, more than anyone, that the cost of courage is rarely measured in applause or recognition. The price was always behind the scenes, in the silent choices, in the sacrifices unseen. Throughout that journey, Jake had not only faced enemies, storms, and treacherous terrain, but he had also confronted the very essence of what it meant to protect and lead. Every decision he made, every act of courage had cost him something precious, something that could not be recovered: the tranquility of a carefree life, the innocence of believing that bravery and reward always go hand in hand. As she walked, she vividly remembered moments when she could have given up, nights when fear threatened to overwhelm her, and yet she chose to move forward. Choosing to move forward meant giving up safety, comfort, perhaps even part of her own identity. And this didn't manifest itself dramatically. It was a silent, almost imperceptible weight that settled in her chest and moved with it, constantly reminding her of the price of what she called duty. Jake was beginning to understand that the real battle wasn't in the confrontation with bandits or the unexpected ambushes, but in what was lost along the way: the certainty that nothing would ever be the same again, the feeling that each sacrifice shaped her story irreversibly, and that courage often is silent and solitary. And yet, there was a profound beauty in this process, a revelation that only those willing to go beyond fear can understand. Jake's legacy wasn't in winning battles or surviving ambushes. It was in the difficult decisions he made, the moments he chose to protect others over himself, and the understanding that every act of courage leaves invisible but lasting marks. The mindset he developed wasn't limited to bravery, but to the ability to face the reality of the consequences of his own choices, to recognize that real impact extends far beyond what meets the eye. There was learning in loss, strength in sacrifice, and a kind of quiet transformation that, little by little, redefined who he was. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because it is precisely in this space between sacrifice and recognition that the true meaning of courage is revealed. Jake began to realize that life rarely gives back exactly what we give, and that every choice made with integrity, even without immediate reward, builds a kind of legacy that transcends visible victories. The impact of his actions, though invisible, shaped not only his own journey, but the trajectory of everyone he had protected. Every decision, every sacrifice, every silent gesture carried weight, but also a powerful lesson about the nature of responsibility and commitment. And it is at this point that Jake's narrative becomes richer, not for the spectacular triumphs, but for the hidden truths that only those willing to face the risk know, for the internal transformations that no one can measure, and for the revelations that shape a man's character when everything else seems to have been taken away. Jake Thompson continued walking alone through the silent valley as the caravan disappeared over the horizon. The cool breeze pierced his skin, bringing with it the scent of wet earth and burnt wood from recent campfires. It was as if the world had finally paused, giving him space to absorb every detail of what had happened. Jake wasn't just a cowboy. He was someone who had shouldered a tremendous responsibility and yet chosen to act with integrity. The transformation taking place within him was silent, almost imperceptible to outsiders, but for him, every scar, every sleepless night, every difficult decision carried a weight and, at the same time, a meaning that resonated deeper than any public acknowledgement. He had changed destinies, not by what he did with weapons or force, but by what he did with courage, empathy, and strategy. What made Jake unique wasn't just his ability to face down bandits or survive unexpected ambushes, but the mindset he developed throughout that journey. He understood that life rewards not only the bold, but also those capable of withstanding the silent impact of their own choices. Each heroic act, each silent sacrifice reflected a hidden truth. True courage isn't measured in applause, but in the ability to stand firm when all seems lost. There was a profound lesson behind that adventure, that leadership, protection, and sacrifice go hand in hand, and that the true impact of our actions often only reveals itself later in the transformation we bring about in the lives of others or in our own personal evolution. As he walked forward, Jake began to reflect on the concept of legacy. A man may be remembered for his victories or defeats, but the essence of legacy lay in the decisions unseen, in the moments we choose to protect, even when doing so requires giving up something important. He thought of the caravan, the families who depended on his courage, and the strange feeling of emptiness that lingered despite success. It was a feeling only those who had faced true dilemmas knew, the certainty that fulfilling a mission doesn't always bring immediate happiness, but generates learning, resilience, and inner transformation. The cowboy who had crossed treacherous territories, challenged his own fate, and faced invisible enemies, now understood that his greatest battle had been against what he had lost along the way, against the fragility of the moment, and against the inevitable solitude that accompanies those who carry the weight of responsibility. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this topic because what Jake shows us goes beyond heroism or visible bravery. It's about the silent impact of our choices and how they shape not only our own destiny, but also that of those around us. He proved that a true hero is not one who seeks fame, but one who finds meaning in protection, care, and the courage to face internal and external challenges simultaneously. Each gesture, each decision made with awareness and integrity builds a narrative that transcends time, transforming lives and leaving invisible but lasting marks. Jake's journey teaches us that sometimes the greatest revolution lies in how we face the sacrifices behind the scenes of life, and in the willingness to remain whole when everything around us seems to want to bend us. It is in this space that a man's true strength and the depth of his legacy are revealed, and it is also here that the most powerful reflections on courage, impact, and transformation emerge. And if you've made it this far, it's because this story touched you in some way, just as it touched me while telling it. You know, it's curious how some journeys make us rethink our choices, our courage, and even what it truly means to protect and transform. So if this message resonated with you, leave a comment below saying, "I'm with you until the end." It's a way for us to truly connect, to acknowledge that we're on this journey together, understanding the impact of every decision we make in life. And if you feel like continuing to explore stories that provoke reflection, courage, and transformation, click the subscribe button and join this journey. The idea here is to share more than just stories. It's to open up learning paths, show behind-the-scenes insights into real life and difficult choices, and provide tools so each of us can act with greater awareness and courage. Oh, and before closing, if this video touched you, give it a like. It's not just a click. It's as if we're acknowledging the exchange that happened here, the energy of connection and transformation that each story brings to our minds and hearts. And there's another story right here that will move you. Click and stay with me there. You'll see that some journeys are only complete when we decide to move forward, understanding every detail and every choice without rushing, but paying attention to what really matters.